The idea was just to have sort of an array of mics that we could use in any situation because we didn't really know at that point what we were going to record.
Yeah, that's the thing. So when you don't know what you're recording, I mean, you just bring a lot of stuff that you like to use every day.
Just making sure we had everything we needed.
Yeah, I mean, 57 and 421, it's pretty basic stuff. Yeah, except
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. This episode is sponsored by OWC, Other World Computing, which you can find at OWC.com, your trusted source for memory and speed upgrades, DIY installs, and used Macs for your studio. Let OWC focus on keeping your studio Mac in killer condition so that you can focus on making great music. Why ditch your existing Mac when you can take your studio far into the future with OWC? Learn more at OWC.com and learn how you can supercharge your studio Mac. The speed to create, the capacity to dream. Find out how awesome your Mac can be at OWC. This show is sponsored by Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can go to take your recording, mixing, and mastering to the next level. And you can start right now with my free introduction to mixing course, Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins in Pro Tools. And the best part is that these mixing techniques will work for you in any DAW, whether you are in Logic, Cubase, PreSonus Studio One, Reaper, or anything you can think of. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, or look for the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. Hey Rockstars, it's your host Lid Shaw, and welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guests today are two guests, actually, Simon Walls and Greg Bonnier from Montreal, Canada. Once a year, these guys pick a country, board a plane, pack suitcases full of gear, and record as many talented artists as they can find. They have an amazing series on YouTube now called Simon and Greg Record the World. And I've, of course, created a playlist on YouTube for you, which you can click through in the show notes to just go check out their stuff. Preferably after this podcast, but go watch some of their amazing documentaries of their travels. Simon Walls is a music producer, songwriter, and adventurer, and after producing his own original records, he's been producing, recording, and mixing for other artists such as the Winston Band, David Jobin, Clay and Friends, ILAM, T-Cloud, Sadio, Cissokho, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And,
yeah, that's right.
Okay, good. And Aaron Lumley. He also produces for Wapikoni Mobile, Musique Nomade and AVATAQ. Maybe that's how you guys say that one?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, cool. Offering recording services and mentorship to indigenous musicians across Canada. That sounds super cool. Between records, Simon is a motivational speaker at the Great Explorers, where he tells the tales of his adventures. I feel like I want to say he tells the tall tales of his adventures because it rolls off the tongue, but I know they're all true.
I'll use that now.
All right, cool. And Greg Bonnier is a record producer, sound engineer, and filmmaker based in Montreal, Canada. Beginning at Musique Plus in 2000, he has since managed post-production facilities, mixed various TV shows, filmed and edited many documentaries, live shows, corporate films, and web projects, including a web series with renowned French actor Pierre Richard. Since 2006, his work in music has led him to produce, record, and mix all over the world with artists from all walks of life and diverse musical genres. So please welcome Simon Walls and Greg Bonnier to Recording Studio Rockstars. Fellas, are you ready to rock?
Oh, yeah.
So ready to rock.
Très bien. How do we say, vous êtes prêt à enregistrement? Something like that.
Yeah. Because like you can't really translate rock. Are you ready to rock? It's like
you can translate it.
It's a very English thing.
Yeah, t'es prêt pour le rock and roll.
Oui.
I think I actually asked Fab that same question on the podcast, and he had a French version for me, but I'll have to go back and review it.
Oh well.
Yeah, he's probably got a good one.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, so cool to have you guys on the show. Rockstars, I think it was Simon. Was it you or Greg that reached out to me at first?
Oh, that was me.
That was you, Simon. And you mentioned this project you were doing. I think we had said hello and connected on Facebook first, and then later you came back and you're like, "Oh, by the way, here's this video we just did." And I click on it, and I was like, "What the? This is amazing!" You know. So
yeah, because it was with who was the guest? Ian.
Oh, Ian Brennan. Yeah.
Yes, that's the one.
Doing similar stuff to what you guys are doing. You know, a different version of it. And I love the twist that you guys have. I love this documentary storytelling kind of thread that goes along with yours, which is really great. But anyway, I'm going to shut up now. You reached out. I saw your videos. I was blown away. Thrilled to have you guys here on the show. Please tell us in your own words who you guys are and how you got into all this.
Want to start?
Yeah, well, it all started at Simon's birthday about it's almost a year and a half ago.
Almost.
And well, obviously, we had a couple of drinks, and out of the blue, Simon told me, you know what? Some friends of mine in Senegal, they've been building this place to make a studio out of. And we were like, that's cool. And he said, do you want to come with me and help build a studio? I was like, sure, why not? And absolutely not knowing what I was going to get into. And then we thought, well, might as well go there with some gear and record other artists. And, well, might as well film it. And might as well get sponsors and might as well, and everything sort of,
conquer the world.
Yeah, avalanched from there,
You have the curse of the dreamer.
Yeah, I guess. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It leads you to great things and stuff like Simon and Greg record the world.
Indeed.
Yeah, and it started I went to Senegal in 2000. Oh man, when was that? 2014, 2015. So I spent like 6 months in Senegal, just traveling around and recording bands here and there. And then I met those people that wanted to build a recording studio, and I didn't have anything with me or I didn't have the means to do it really, and but we kept in contact. And then when I got back to Montreal, they sent me this picture of this building out in the bush they were building, and so they sent like this picture, and they're like, "Hey, so this is going to be the recording studio. Want to come and help us out?" So
yeah, mind you, he says it's a building. It's basically a concrete box.
Yeah, it's 4 walls.
Yeah,
with a metal sheet roof.
Yeah.
And so, what was the name of that town? That was in the season 1. I think by episode 2 or something, you arrive at the studio,
Correct.
right, and start building it.
Exactly.
That's right.
It's Sindia.
Am I going to be quizzed on that later? What's that? Sindia?
Oh, we got a bunch of them.
Sindia.
Sindia. Yeah, it's
Sindia.
Sindian. Yeah.
Okay.
And,
cool.
And it's basically in the middle of the high grass brush. That's
there's not much around.
There's nothing there. Like, it's really the end of the world.
It's like I was trying to think of a word I wanted to say. I said on an Instagram video earlier today, I was like in the middle of the
the wilderness.
The wilderness or something. And I was like, that's not wilderness. That's like, wilderness is forest. This is like, it's like a rural town, but very rural. Like, there's hardly anything around it, right?
According to Wikipedia, it's supposed to be woodland savanna.
Woodland savanna. All right, cool.
Yeah, I like
so
it.
there's actually some small forests and stuff, but where Sindia actually is, there's no forest anymore. There's no very
there's
little
nothing
trees.
really, and it's really close to Gambia.
But otherwise, it's not a forest. It's pretty much sand and grass and stuff like that.
Well, it's very, very cool. Let's we're going to get deep into all this stuff, but let's start at the beginning a little bit. Introduce us to who you guys are, and this beginning of your, how'd you get into recording to even get to this point?
I can start.
Go ahead.
So, long story short, I'm a songwriter. That's how I started. I made three albums, and then I produced pretty much the whole thing. And then I really liked it. And then some bands started to, contact me to produce their stuff because they like what I did. And then I've been producing full time for the past, 5-6 years full time. And then, just recording and mixing and a little bit of mastering. But it's mostly producing bands.
Very cool. And you know what? Would you guys say I am Simon and I am Greg so that the rock stars will begin to now associate who is who with your voices?
Oh, yeah. They can't see the beard. That's
why. They can't see anything, yeah.
Well, I'm Greg.
And I'm Simon.
Right on, fellas.
There we go.
Well, once again, glad to have you on the show. And Greg, Excellent. How about you, man?
Well, I started in television. I was fortunate enough to have a dad who had a production company, and so I started very young, a little bit like Obelix in Asterix and Obelix.
I know it well.
I fell in it. I fell in it when I was a kid, and so that's how I started mixing shows and everything. And I came out of high school. I was in music to find out that I'm a terrible musician, but that I knew music. And so I thought, well, what if I become an engineer? So I went to school, to finish school, engineering school, like a sound engineering school, to realize that I know nothing about engineering. So there we go. I had a great opportunity at my dad's place to experiment with that and build a studio of my own and start producing records because, just for fun, because it was fun. And
it is
since
fun.
Then I basically just I take about 1 or 2 albums a year. I'm not full time like Simon, but for the past year, it's been missing a little. So that Simon and Greg thing really is important to me at that point to keep my sanity.
Now, how did you guys connect? Had you known each other growing up or anything like that, or met through recording school?
Yeah, I produce the record for one of my best friend, my ex-roommate, and Simon was one of his friends, and so he would keep coming to my house and drink beer and have fun. And at one point, we just became friends. Yeah. I guess we never worked together on. I did master one of your album.
Yeah.
But it was more of a, hey, you want to do the mastering for my album? Yeah, sure. But we never sat down and recorded anything other than.
And then you mastered
Simon and Greg record the
you
world.
mastered an album I did with LT.
Also, yeah.
One.
So I do a bit of mastering. It's easier for me with my other jobs, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And that's
so we got together and we like to geek out, and that's how it started. Like
passion in music. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And then of course, Rockstars have also included links to some of Simon and Greg's studio work in the YouTube as well. So you should find some stuff in there. And I think or maybe you sent me Spotify links as well too, which I can post in the show notes. But you guys are making some really cool records. Great indie rock stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't find the YouTube link for Klima.
Oh, but it's in French.
Well, that's okay. Spotify will work.
Yeah, it's one of those wacky records I did in the woods on a generator.
Nice.
That was fun. Yeah. And actually, we recorded everything in the woods on the generator, and then took all I started mixing it, and it's actually Fab who finished the mix.
Oh, fantastic. Very cool.
Yeah, I hired Fab for to finish that mix, and it ended up being a great record. And he obviously, Fab thought it was wacky. He thought, you guys, what did you do? This is crazy. And I think that he made an article on Pure Mix about that. It's still available.
Cool, man. That's cool. Yeah. All right. So I like to ask guests also to share an inspirational quote to kick off the podcast, just get us kind of in the mindset of hitting the studio and making music. Do you have anything that you want to share with us? Anything or anybody that sort of has inspired you in this process of recording?
Bruce Swedien.
Oh, right
on,
yeah.
Okay. Bruce Swedien apparently once said, nobody ever came out of a record store humming the sound of the console.
It's true.
And it's absolutely in the spirit of what we're doing, which is music comes first.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter if we're not in a treated room with a window between the live room and the control room, or it doesn't matter. The important part is have good music, because nobody ever came out of a record store humming the sound of the console.
Indeed. And, I think that, we're going to talk about the studio that you guys chose to take over there and the tools you used, all of which we're excited about. But your point, I think, is a reminder that it could have been other tools. You could have, it's not about that. It's about the music and the performances.
Yeah. Yeah, about the songs, mainly. Yeah.
And the songs.
I think I got one too.
Yeah, please.
I got one too. So that one was from... it's from my father. I don't think he made that up, but when I was a couple of years ago, I did this trek where I walked across Canada from west to east.
Wow.
And then the whole journey was 9 months. And at the end of it, kind of 2 weeks before the ending, I just crashed. I don't know what happened, but just my body just gave up, and I was crying by myself in a motel room. And I was talking to my dad on the phone, and he said something that just got me on my feet. And it's the translation would be, pain only lasts for a short moment, but failure or regrets will last forever.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, I think there's a lot of pain that we experience in the studio, and there's a lot of regret we can experience by not being in the studio and not making records and not, finally finishing that song that we wish we had done.
Yeah, exactly.
So here you guys are, it was Simon's birthday, and by the way, I want to mention to you guys that Rockstars, Simon and Greg and I can see each other on video while we do this. We're just recording our voices for the podcast, and we don't often do video, but Simon and Greg have lined themselves up from left to right as Simon and Greg. And I noticed that you did that in your documentary too. And I wonder if you do that often and intentionally to help people know who is Simon and who is Greg. But it's appreciated.
But it's just natural.
It's a natural thing.
I guess we do it naturally because, I don't know.
That's funny.
Naturally on the left.
Yeah. So Simon's birthday, and you guys come up with this idea to go and record. What was the time frame between birth of an idea and finding yourselves in Senegal?
Oh, so short.
So short.
Oh, so
my
short.
birthday is on October 28th, and then we left middle January.
Yeah, middle January. Wow. Actually, we return about this at the same period of time last year.
Yeah. So
we actually did our trips in the same time frame from the year, and we could see our Facebook memories from last year popping up while we were in Morocco.
Oh, that's a trip.
So it's really funny. Really at the same period.
And what about the time of year as far as the season I guess Morocco and Senegal, not exactly the same season, but sort of ballpark maybe. Is it a good time of year to be traveling both those parts?
Yes, because Canada is very cold in January, so that's what it's the reason why we do it in January.
It's less about what's waiting for you.
It's feeling
there you go.
Right now, it's feeling like minus 19 Celsius.
Wow.
So I don't know what Fahrenheit.
Well, I've always been curious about that cold weather in Canada and whether it's conducive to the studio, just because you want to be hunkered down in a warm, windowless room at that time or not.
Yeah, it's very creative. I like it.
Yeah. It's a great opportunity to just shell inside this cocoon and create.
Yeah, you don't feel bad to
you
not be outside.
Not to be outside. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, so October to January, and Rockstars, it's not like these guys just had to buy a couple of tickets and go to Senegal. They had to do a lot more than that. You had to get together a studio, figure out what you were going to record with, how you were going to do this. I think that taking a trip to Africa alone requires, more than just getting your passport ready. Do you guys have to do things like even just get shots to make sure that you don't come down with some kind of
Not anymore. They
Not
used
anymore.
to be. Yeah, they used to be mandatory, but they're not.
Yeah. I mean, like the first time I went to Senegal, there was shots you needed to get
Yellow
get there.
fever mainly.
Yeah, pretty much. And then you still need to get a visa, but it takes less than 24 hours to get it. Except that it was mainly to wait for sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
That was the big part.
yeah,
of it.
we had to, because obviously we went there, and I thought, well, why not reach out to the companies that we already use in our studio, and so they were nice enough to basically give us some gear to help us record what we needed to record, because obviously bringing our own mics is kind of a risky thing. Which we kind of did with 57s and the heavy duty stuff, but for anything that's condenser with the sand and the dust, and that's actually the intro, because that's the extreme part of the trip is having those microphones into the elements and basically maybe breaking them. Fortunately, we had Brian at Loudon Audio who got us a bunch of microphones and helped us tremendously with the gear situation.
Yeah, it's not just microphones.
Yeah.
They're amazing sounding microphones.
And they're microphones that we use every day. Well, every day, in recording, actually. I wouldn't have reached out to just any company and say, we want a sponsor. No, we wanted Loudon, we wanted Focal, we wanted UA, because they're the main tools that we use. Yeah. And in the case of Brian, he was extremely reactive. I mean, within a week and a half, there was a FedEx box with our address on it,
waiting for us for Christmas. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was. He was Santa that year, and this year too.
Well, that's awesome. Let's dig into the details. All right, let's go straight for the weeds. As we enter the bush. Is that considered sub-Saharan Africa or not?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so I'm going to finish my sentence. As we enter into the bush of sub-Saharan Africa, so what microphones did you choose, and what did you feel like would be good choices for what you'd need on a field recording trip like this?
So for the Loudon Audio, what we got was we had two Atlantis with us. We had two Clarion, which are like a smaller version. What did we get? We had a pair of 220 LA 220
LA 220 LA 120s.
Yeah, LA
a pair
120s.
of these.
Are those pencil diaphragm or small diaphragm mics?
Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
Yeah, and then we had 257, one kick mic, which was a D12 VR, one 421. Yep. And I was supposed to bring a SM7B that I forgot at home.
I think I remember that from the video.
Yeah, that was me. That's okay.
We lived without it.
Yeah.
See, that's also part of the challenge. Not having everything on the tip of your finger to just use anytime you wish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're in the middle of Africa, and well, obviously, you gotta make some concessions.
Yeah, and honestly, with all the mics we had, we could do everything.
Yeah,
pretty much. So
yeah, it was more about making sure we had enough mic stands and enough wires. The wiring was a bit of a hassle, so that's one thing we upgraded upon.
Yeah, that's a big one
on the second trip.
Yeah, wiring meaning your mic cables and things like that.
Yeah, mic cables, cables, because we had just regular mic cables, and
it's pretty heavy. It takes a lot of space.
So we figured out why not use lavalier microphone wires and just solder full size XLR to them. And so basically, in a package that is weighing, I don't know, a little over a kilo, maybe 4 pounds. Something like that. Yeah. We basically have over 200 feet of cable.
Wow. That's a clever way to do it.
Yeah. It's not super heavy duty, but it's a trade-off.
Yeah. Well, so better to bring an extra
You're gentle
one.
with them. And
just bring an extra cable, and that way if you bust it, you got a second backup anyway. It's still lighter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like the trip is just 3 weeks, so it's not like if you're gone for 6 months. So in 3 weeks, you're pretty good.
Okay, cool. So you've got to think of all the things you need, bring them with you. You selected a great selection of microphones. Just for a little more clarity, the Lawton Audio Atlantis are sort of large diaphragm mics that make for good vocal mics and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They're actually bigger than 1 inches. I think they're 1.2 inches or something. They're quite large diaphragms.
Yeah.
But it's a very interesting sound.
Yeah, they sound amazing.
What are some of the switchables on there that you felt like were useful or important for your recordings?
Oh, we use the figure 8 a lot.
Yeah.
A lot to reject sides. Especially with that Cora player.
Yeah.
There was a Cora player, and it's impressive. I think that on Pure Mix, on the blog, you can actually listen to the raw files. And if you go there and download the files, put them on a timeline, you'll see on this session, you'll see how amazing of a rejection you can get just by placing them at the right spot, like how little voice you can actually hear in the Cora microphones.
Yeah, because we were trying to reject the vocal mainly because, like, you know, the Cora is not a super loud instrument, so as soon as you sing a little loud, it gets in all the mics, so it did the job like crazy.
Well, the figure 8 trick you're talking about is useful in a lot of studio situations. So if you've got this acoustic guitar that's down there and somebody's finger picking it quietly, can you explain where you put the mic so that it's somehow rejecting the voice magically, even though it's so close?
Want to describe it?
It's really just the axis. You know, if you have the 90-degree axis pointing at the person, well, then you're most likely going to reject as much as possible.
Yeah, because what you need to know is how a Cora is made is someone playing strings on both sides.
Yeah.
So you need a microphone on both sides to get the whole thing.
So I'll help a little bit with clarity for the rock stars. The figure 8 is picking up what it's pointed at and what's behind it, but it's rejecting the sides, and you're kind of pointing the side toward the voice so that it rejects the voice, right?
Yeah, right.
Cool. Well, that's a great trick. I remember doing field recording myself, and I don't think I ever thought to do that. I probably would have helped me out, you know? Okay, cool. And then how about the Clarion mics? Those are just sort of smaller, large diaphragm mics?
Yeah, they're large diaphragm. They're 1-inch capsules.
It doesn't have this, like the collar thing.
Yeah, the Atlantis, here's the thing. The Atlantis has this circuitry where you have a forward kind of sound, which is basically boosting the high end. You got a neutral sound, which is, neutral, just the sound of the microphone. And then you got a gentle sound, which kind of rolls off the highs a tiny bit and then give a boost on the low end. And we didn't use that very much.
Not that much. I mean, mostly it was in neutral.
But it's a very interesting mic for that purpose, because it's like having 3 mics in one. And for someone who only has like 1 mic for vocal and has say a female vocalist that's a bit harsh on the high end, well, then you can roll it off with just that mic and not using an EQ or
That's super cool. That's super cool.
Yeah. So the Clarion doesn't have that feature, but this said, I use the Clarion all the time. I just made this album with kind of like a rock-ish band, rock and roll, and a lot of stuff was recorded just with the Clarion. So
now you also brought like a pair of 57s and a kick drum mic. Obviously, you thought you might be recording some drums, or did you just think these would be useful for all kinds of other things as well?
Very useful for a lot of stuff. I mean, like even
bass
for
amps.
Bass amp, djembe, a lot of mainly for percussions. It's just like this. The D12VR, love that mic on a lot of stuff. So really useful.
What about the 421? What do you find that is really useful for out in the field?
I like the sound. I like the 421 on guitar amps mainly, and we use it for percussions, I think.
Yeah. The idea was just to have sort of an array of mics that we could use in any situation, because we didn't really know at that point what we were going to record.
Yeah, that's the thing.
We knew about one guy, which is episode 3, which is Casa Voice, because Papis is a friend of Simon. but pretty much all the rest of the guys, aside from the rappers, which obviously don't require a whole array of microphones.
Yeah, but we met them on the road pretty much.
We met them on the road. We basically sent out Simon most of the logistics of finding people who were and who were basically sending us demos and telling us where we were, they were where they were, and then try to figure out how we could sort of squeeze them in our itinerary and making sure that we could see everyone in time.
So when you don't know what you're recording, I mean, you just bring a lot of stuff that you like to use every day. So
just making sure we had everything we needed.
Yeah, I mean, 57 and 421, it's pretty basic stuff. Yeah.
So for me, I do a studio on location every summer at the Bonnaroo Festival. And
I saw that. Cool. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And
I'm like super jealous.
Well, we also don't always know what we're going to be recording. And I know what it feels like here to be like, okay, we got all the mics we need. Just bring some more. Just throw the rest in there, But of course, we have the luxury because all we have to do is just put it in a 17-foot U-Haul and drive it down there. For you guys to say we're going to bring extra, that's a big deal, And then
and they have to be solid. Yeah, that's a thing.
Yes, indeed. And then Greg, there's a great segment of the video where you show off how it all just beautifully fits in this backpack at one point. Yeah, which is super cool. So Rockstars, you're going to love watching these videos. Really, really fun. Tell us about the headphones. What is that? What Focal sent you guys with, and were there any important considerations around what kind of headphones to bring with you?
Well, this year we were pretty lucky.
Let's start with last year.
Go ahead.
Last year they sent us, and it was kind of a problem because they were in the middle of they were in between two lines of headphones, and basically they wanted to send us Listen Pros, but they were only like almost manufacturing quality prototypes, and they couldn't send us those. And there weren't manufactured units yet. And they didn't want to send us the Spirit Pro, the old ones, because they had to keep every little bit of them that they have for after sales services.
Yeah, to replace
broken ones. And so they ended up sending us a couple of listens, which ended up being a very, very good thing because they are so solid that we had absolutely no, we weren't frightened to leave them in Africa for people to super use, like to be very hard on them and for them to break or have any problems. So that was a good thing.
Because you guys are you're outfitting a studio. You're not just taking all the gear and coming back with it. You're bringing the gear and setting up a studio to stay there, right?
Well, yeah, in this case, it was part of the trip to say, okay, we're going to go there to also help them build this, have enough gear to be able to be autonomous once we leave,
and leave some gear there so they can do their own thing after, And it's also the big part of it was to show them, techniques of how to record and mix, pretty much. So
very cool.
So that whole part with the studio. We had to leave some stuff for them to have enough gear to at least be able to record themselves once we were gone.
And then you also took some stuff from UAD. What was useful from UAD?
So that's the trip in Morocco this year. So the sponsors gave us some new toys, I would say.
We have been working for the past year to have UA on board with us, and finally they said yes, and they were very cool. They sent us the brand new X8P sound card, which is exactly what we needed because, like I said, with the previous trip, we sort of found out what didn't work and what could be improved upon. And one of those things was that dreaded 500 series rack.
Yeah, that thing was too much, man.
I was really impressed that you guys took that with you. I saw that in the video. I was like, wow, they took a 500 rack with them?
Yeah. Well, that was a mistake. And
well, I mean,
we figured that out, during the trip.
Yeah, and I mean, like most of the units in the 500 series, they're DIY stuff. So they're all stuff that I that I made myself. But everything was working at the end. So
yeah, it ended up working fine, but it was a kind of a bit of a large package
it was a
altogether.
problem.
Yeah, it's. I mean,
And so
it's a
we
heavy
thought,
piece
how
of gear.
can there we go. And we thought, well, how can we improve on that? And I've been working with Apollo since it came out in 2012, and I thought, well, an X8P, that'd be great. Let's try and ask them, and they were like, yeah, that's sure, of course.
So what is the X8P?
We ended up. So the X8P is basically 8 preamps
with 6 core.
With two headphone outs, and that was great for us because obviously sometimes we want to listen to what is being recorded clearly, but in some instances we also need the band to be able to listen to something, say for overdubs. They need to have the playback in there. So to have 2 outputs was a good thing with some splitters. It's just enough so that we don't need to bring like a headphone amplifier or anything. We were able to feed everybody, and there was no problem there.
But the main thing was really the 8 preamps.
Yeah, the 8 preamps. Not to have
8
to
preamps
bring
built in,
like other outboard gear.
Yeah.
And add to that the fact that the way Universal Audio works with all of their sound cards is that it's sort of a stackable, stackable system. So if you buy the Apollo and then you have, say, an Arrow or an Apollo Twin, well, you just add to that system 2 other preamps, and it just works seamlessly.
So we got an Arrow in top of that, which is pretty much just a 2-input sound card. So that made a 10 inputs.
Yeah, 10
and
inputs. It would additionally give us 1 more headphone outputs, and then 1 more DI in. So basically with 3 DIs, 10 preamps total, and 3 headphone outs, we were... That's all we needed, really.
Yeah, because the thing is, the more preamps you got, you need more microphones, which is not something we got in our bags.
Right.
So,
10
it was
for a full band, most likely it was fine. We never missed a channel.
That's
we never
great.
thought, oh crap, we'd like to have more. No, it was fine.
Now, I know that one of the things that UAD includes in their software is the ability to record through some of their amazing plugins. Is that something that you guys chose to do while you were recording this stuff too, or was it more like
we did it a couple times. We did it a couple times. Mainly like the first bands. I think we
didn't use any we didn't burn in any plugins. However, we did use the Unison technology, which is the microphone emulator.
Oh, cool. All right.
The microphone preamp emulator. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And that
was
fine.
really
that
cool
was fun.
because we've seen the difference really.
Yeah, and all through this trip in Morocco, we were feeding loops and samples from what we recorded from the bands to producers,
so that
they could make other songs with those samples. And one of the first thing they told us was, how did you process the sound so that it would have so much rejection? And they were like, so what did you do to the sound? How did you process it? And we were like,
they sound so clean. It sounds so good. What did you guys do to it? It's like,
we just
nothing, no EQ, nothing. Just put the mic in front of it, and
good microphone placement, and a good
player
preamp
with a good instrument, and
that's it.
It was good.
So cool. So let me say some of that back to you. So, Greg, you're saying that you guys didn't necessarily use compressors and burn in those plugins.
No.
But you would choose which mic pre you like the sound of the mic going through internally. And this is a virtual mic pre as part of the UAD setup. And then when you talk about like sending loops for producers and stuff, I'm like, that sounds awesome. So you're not talking about locally right there at the same place where you're recording the band. You're talking about recording these bands and using the internet to send stuff off back to Canada or other countries.
They were local producers.
Oh, they are
not
local.
even. I mean, like the whole project was to like recording bands, and along the way, I would chop like a couple parts from their songs or just like instruments we would do in overdubs, and then I would create loops, and then we had this one guy, Nader. His name is. He's an engineer in Rabat in Morocco, and he found like a whole bunch of beat makers and music producers that wanted to be part of the project. So I would create this file in Dropbox and would put like, I think I had like 36 or 37 loops in total. And they were like very short segments.
Yeah.
And then they would create something on their own with those like 36, 7 samples. The goal was they could use whatever they wanted. Like they didn't have to use like all the samples. They would just like take whatever motivates them or makes them creative. And then we met with them after, and just to listen to all the songs they did, and it's pretty impressive.
That's so cool.
Like all those loops that you've been recording, and then someone else like
has already
create
turned
something
it
on
into
top of that. Yeah, it's awesome.
What an
It's
exciting
a fun
process.
way to
Yeah.
it's a fun way to just do something else with what we're already doing.
Yeah.
Sort of making a parallel project out of the already ongoing project.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's really important, like the like all the producers were from Morocco, so they had like this background of traditional music, but they were mostly doing I don't know, like EDM and house music and like something that's nothing compared to the traditional. But
They knew what they were getting.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
the instruments, they knew the names, they knew, the rhythmic patterns that are proper to Morocco.
Yeah.
They know about that, but they just decide to use it in another way.
now,
Which is very
when you guys
interesting.
are traveling through Morocco, that's quite a different experience from your travels through Senegal, right? It's much more highly populated, and there's urban environments and all that, right?
Yes.
Correct.
So you've
Yeah.
got existing
Well,
studios
even
and
like the,
producers there and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. People are more equipped. Well, the places we were in Senegal, it was like the south region called Casamance, and it's like it's separated from the other part of Senegal with like a country right in the middle, which is Gambia. So they're not really connected to the north or the big city in Dakar. So Morocco, we were mostly in big cities, except at the end.
Yeah, except at the end, really at the doors of the desert. I mean, we were literally, we saw the end of the road,
Wow.
Yeah,
the actual end of the road,
Yeah.
where you just drive
and then
and
it's
then
dunes
it's
and sand, and that's it.
It's not like
That's
there's
the
a
end of it.
little, path or something. No. There's asphalt and then sand.
Yeah, and like at that
if you
point,
go that
start
way-
walking.
Yeah, if you go that way, you end up in like the Persian Gulf.
Yeah,
Do you know who Shel Silverstein is? He's a famous, hilarious poet and songwriter who lived down here in Nashville. He has this great book of poems called "Where the Sidewalk Ends." So it kind of reminds
Oh
me.
yeah, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Maybe he went to Morocco.
Maybe I was wondering if you saw him there, and also like I can't help like the way you described that whole trip. I just can't help picturing a Star Wars movie set somehow.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. Well, what do you guys want to talk about? There's so many great stories you must have from your trip to Senegal, from your recent trip to Morocco. Which direction should we go?
Well, we could lube the loop with Senegal before getting into Morocco.
Great.
What can we say about Senegal?
Tell us this great story of your first journey over there. What was it like? I mean,
One of the message I think that is very important for the people to know about is that there is a serious problem with downloading beats over there.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
that's
it's
a
kind
big-
of
yeah.
worldwide, but
It's kind of worldwide, but that's why
Yeah.
it's so important to talk about it. Is because a lot of countries or a lot of people don't have the means to either buy beats or have beat makers do custom beats for their material, or arrange some kind of a deal where one guy produces, one guy raps,
or have the equipment, or have the sound banks to
they
do
just
it. Or,
don't have the means. So what they do is that they download any beat from anywhere, and it makes basically their all their work, their hard work, which is writing and recording and this performance, useless because it's economically unviable. They can't sell it because it's on a unlicensed beat. So one of the reasons why we thought it was important to make this studio in Senegal was to also give an opportunity to local producers to have a place and equipment to make original beats for local rappers. And that's we do talk about it in the last episode of the season in Senegal. And it's one of those things that I think is important to take the time and have people realize that it is a problem. The fact that they're unable to do something to how could I say, they're unable to do original material, not because they're not creative enough, but because they just don't have any producers. They don't have necessarily the know-how.
Well, they don't even have like a good microphone to
just a good mic. Yeah. Just a good mic or a good enough computer.
Well, it's an unexpected twist on it too, because when you first say, a problem with downloading beats, I think traditionally here in the, America or whatever, it's like, oh, beat makers aren't getting paid for their hard work. But in fact, that's not it. It's the fact that these guys are then putting this heart and energy into making these beautiful musical works, and they can't actually do anything with the work when they create because they could never afford to buy the beat in the first place.
No, exactly.
Correct.
Exactly. And one of the things we did was with an artist in India, Poxby. So we showed him how to make beats pretty much. So there was this one guy doing, like beats on his own, and then we brought him in, and then we used a couple of his beats just to, create hip hop songs with them. And then we brought in a percussion ensemble from the village. So we put a bunch of mics on them, and then we made them perform for like an hour, and then I chopped them up, all the waves, and then made samples with it just to put over in their beat. So that was cool to do.
That's great. Well, what a great motivation for doing all that stuff too.
Yeah. Well, it's also like when you don't have a lot of equipment, the only thing you got is, being creative, really. And honestly, that's pretty much the only thing that matters. So
yeah. Well, so you guys took quite a journey just to even get to this location. Any stories you want to share about the trip there? I think there was some pretty funny footage in your video of you just like sleeping on the floor.
Oh yeah,
of
we
a
got drunk
ship
on the
and
boat.
everything.
Yeah, we got drunk on the boat.
Great.
And slept on the floor because that's how you do it there.
Yeah, there was no bed, so we just slept on the floor.
Well,
but with a couple beers, a lot of stuff you can do.
Yep.
That's true. And again, you guys are living my dream. So, when I was young, we took a studio and a car and drove around the country, and I slept, on the floor of an old it was an old retirement, nursing home or something like that. And I remember after drinking, like having slept and breathed in the carpet dust all night long, and I did not look good the next morning. So I can feel for you, the effort and commitment you got to put into just getting from one place to another. What about the location? Tell us about this building. You guys went through quite an awesome experience of actually building and creating a studio from what was a concrete box and very clever,
the biggest
beautiful
challenge
stuff.
was the biggest challenge was treating the room with no means, because obviously it's easy if we had a sponsorship from I don't know, Oralex or some big name company with that does acoustical treatment. It would have been easy, but then no, it's all coming out of our pockets, which means that, anything that's free is that much less that we have to pay to make this studio, to treat this studio. So obviously the idea was to make it as cheap as possible, but also acoustically correct. So we used a couple of strategies that ended up being far more effective than we would have thought. Namely the corner traps filled with wood dust and just veneer panels.
Yeah, that was
and
clever.
that was and that was an idea from a guy at living in Sindia because we were trying to find a way to fill that up, and then he's just like, "Hey,
we
why
have
not use
wood
that?"
dust because at first we thought of sand, and it would have worked, but
it's too heavy.
It was too heavy. It would have eventually just break.
Yeah,
you know, because the sheer mass of it is too much.
Yeah,
and we thought, well, we need something else, and part of this whole process also was to implicate them in the thinking process, the whole creatively trying to find alternative materials. And so we'd say, okay, we need something that is porous, that is like foam. What can we use? Well, we have these mattresses that we use. Okay, well, that's a good idea. Okay, let's go get a mattress.
And then we went to the market and we drove around and just
looked
shopped
at
for a
stuff
bunch of
and
stuff.
go like, oh, would that be good? You know, at first we wanted to use plastic buckets to make the sort of diffusers in the corner, because the way they were shaped, they weren't completely cylindrical. They kind of had a wedge, so it was sort of diffusing on both axes. And then we thought, okay, but just cutting them in quarters would have been a pain in the ass. And so what can we use? Well, we can just put 2 little pieces of wood on each side of the corner and then fit a veneer sheet and then fill it with something. So what can we fill it with? Well, let's ask the people around. And then one of the guys said wood dust, and that's it. So it was a fun thing to just collectively think of solution, finding a good alternative for what otherwise would have cost a fortune.
And it was a good idea because you've seen the exact same thing in a big studio in Montreal.
Yeah. Because just the veneer to the way we curved it, I don't know if you saw on the video. At one point, we both were both shirtless,
water
and we're putting water to bend the.
I thought that was brilliant.
The veneer, and it actually worked. And I was back in Montreal at Studio Planète, which is like one of the big studios in Montreal, and I saw basically the exact same thing with the exact same wood. And I was like, well, we weren't so off.
Well, the guy stole the idea.
Clearly.
So Rockstars, for some clarity on that too, an original diffuser is literally just a curved piece of wood, meaning, that the sound goes and hits it and it gets dispersed as it reflects back, as opposed to just reflecting back in one wave, right?
Yeah.
Now, did you feel like there needed to be something heavy behind that wood, or not necessarily, or any thoughts on that? I mean, obviously you couldn't get too crazy with it. You just had to work with what you had.
No.
Yeah, it was mainly just concrete behind it, pretty much. I think like the best idea was the telephone pole.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
We found a telephone pole, and actually we woke up that morning, and I remember telling Simon, you know what I saw like on the side of the studio? And he said the telephone pole. I was like, well, we were all on the same page about that.
Yeah.
And so we really both had the sort of the spark about this telephone pole, thinking that, okay, this could be a great free diffuser.
Yeah. But the big thing was cutting it.
So it wasn't about phoning home because you guys were homesick at that point?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It was about cutting it without a proper mechanical saw.
Oh, man.
We actually had just one hand saw, and it wasn't even sharp.
No.
It was a pain.
Yeah.
And we actually thought of asking the guys, okay, where can we find a chainsaw? And they were like, well, we could have one if we go get it. It's in another village 45 minutes away. And we were like, okay, well, never mind. We'll just all, chip in a bit of energy.
Yeah, we took turns. But there's this one guy, like this big dude, and he just did half of it by himself pretty much.
That's great. That's great.
It was really cool.
Well, so now another detail is, most people think about building a studio and they think about doing a floated floor, but here you guys are building a floating ceiling in this place too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So tell us
there's
about
no
that.
need for
was there no roof over your head?
There was the roof was basically just
it's made of
metal sheet. With it's held by trees, basically, that they cut down and they make the structure, and then they just put the sheet metal on top of it. So it's there's a lot of air coming out. There's a lot of sound from the nearby. There's a road, but it's not really used. But it's mainly chickens and animals like livestock,
and soccer games and
and stuff like that. And so the idea was to just make. Usually, what they do is that they put some plastic tarp, and that's the roof. But
that's how they do it in houses.
That's how they do it in houses.
Yeah.
And we thought, okay, we had to add another layer of something to dampen the sound. And we found this beautiful fabric.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. And that's it. Our friend Yusuf put it there for us.
Yeah.
We had the help from a wonderful carpenter from the village who he really gave himself.
Oh yeah,
and everything
was equal the whole way.
And, yeah. Like he did it the right way.
That's cool.
Great guy.
Well, so you built a ceiling for this studio and got it dialed in and sounding pretty good. Tell us about the recording experience with some of these musicians. I mean, what was it like? What were some of the challenges and rewards of recording with these people there?
The big challenges were mainly rooms, like all the rooms we were recording in, because usually they sound like crap. Well, I mean, it's very, very lively. There's a lot of reverb going on. The other problem we've had was mainly instruments, because usually the instruments are not in super shape, very out of tune, and rusted strings and
they just don't keep their tune because they're usually not great quality craftsmanship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was the big challenge.
Yeah. You guys weren't going to travel with a full back line, huh?
Of course.
Oh man, I wish one day. Sponsored with my Marshall. I'll bring a whole plexi with me.
Well, now I will make a comment about building the studio, and you talked about if we had a sponsorship like Oratone or something. I think that actually there's something really beautiful and elegant about the fact that you guys built this studio out of local materials, especially when the quote that you guys have on your website. You talk about you can teach. Or you can, what is it? You can give a man a fish and he eats for a day, or you can teach him how to record and he makes records for a life or something like that. And
there was many versions of that quote, and
that's the one that we settled on. I come up with a lot of wacky stuff.
You got it.
That one was okay.
I have a wandering mind.
But I mean, here other people will see that the studio was built out of local materials, and they'll become inspired to build another studio, as opposed to if they just see something that looks like it's made out of gold, they're going to be like, well, I'll never have one of those.
Acoustical treatment is all about know-how and knowledge. And, at one point, if you know how sound reacts to this material or that material, or just to say, like, for example, that your broadband absorbers, if you put them 2 or 3 inches from the wall, well, then you're going to get them to go a lot lower in the absorption rate range. And these are just it doesn't cost more to put your broadband absorber 3 inches from the wall. You just have to know about it.
Yeah.
And these are all things that we tried to apply over there. I mean, wood dust is going to vibrate. It's really going to have the same type of. No, it's not going to be completely flat across the whole frequency spectrum, but it will sort of react the same way as a foam would, because it will vibrate and take up that energy and transfer it into heat.
Yeah, and it works.
And that's
great.
The whole principle behind it. So if you understand that, if you understand diffusion, well, then you can say, okay, we just need something round, and we need stuff that is round but not with the same arc. There are just all those little things that you don't need to have this professional foam in order to do.
Right.
No, and the other thing is the whole thing cost us about $200.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a great part of the video is you guys sort of and we stopped and got this $20,
Yeah.
And it's also to show that, it doesn't cost a lot. Obviously we're in Africa. It's different, all the wood was cut from planks. Well, you saw it in the video. That's straight from the tree, and obviously you don't buy 2x4. You buy wood.
Right.
Which is arbitrarily at a certain thickness, and you just use that.
It looks the same.
It's literally
kind of looks the same, but it's not a 2x4.
Literally wood from the arbitrary.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. On that dumb note, we'll take a break for a second. Rockstars, we're going to come back in just for a moment for the jam session. Reminder that we're going to have links to all these amazing things we're talking about here with Simon and Greg in the show notes. So if you're listening on your mobile device, just click through, or if you're on your desktop, go to rsrockstars.com. And it's going to be right there, including a YouTube playlist, so you can just watch some of these incredible videos that they're making. And we'll see you guys in just a moment for the jam session. This show is sponsored by Recording Studio Rockstars Academy. Are you ready to take your recording, mixing, and mastering to the next level and make your best record ever? Then visit the Academy to find the course that's right for you. Want to record killer drums in your home studio? Then check out Rockstars of Drums to learn how to record, edit, and mix pro-sounding drums with a professional Nashville session drummer in a Grammy-winning studio. Or if you are ready to start mastering your own records at home, then check out Rockstars of Mastering, where I walk you through exactly how I mastered my own record, Skadoosh, using nothing but plugins in PreSonus Studio One. These techniques would work for you in whichever DAW you are using right now. And if mixing is your focus, then check out my free course, Mix Master Bundle, where I show you how to mix using stock and free plugins in Pro Tools. Plus, you get a look at how I recorded everything in my studio and multi-track downloads to mix in your own studio, and even include in your mixing portfolio if you want. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and look for the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. Are you using a Mac in your recording studio? Are you tired of feeling like the studio setup you worked so hard to create is becoming obsolete too quickly? Wouldn't it feel great to have a trusted friend to help you keep your existing Mac and studio setup current and relevant, so that you can focus on the thing you love most, which is making great music? Well, now you can rely on OWC, Other World Computing, which you can find at OWC.com, whose mission it is to help you get the most mileage out of your existing Mac. Whether you need to upgrade your RAM, install an SSD drive, add more connectivity, or simply find a great used Mac that's ready to rock, OWC will help take your studio into the future with a vast library of DIY install videos, 24/7 friendly support, and free shipping in the US on most items over $49. Why get frustrated and ditch your existing computer when you can take your studio into the future with OWC? Learn more at OWC.com and find out how awesome your Mac can be at OWC. Hey, Rockstars, we're back now for the jam session. My guests today are Simon Walls and Greg Bonnier, joining us from Montreal, Canada, and they're telling us all about their Record the World adventures, which you can watch on YouTube. Are you guys ready to jam?
Yeah, every day.
Sweet. Well, talk about your ability to communicate with the people that you're recording in these faraway lands. Are you dealing with language barriers? How do you address that?
Yeah, that's it. We're going to talk about our inability to communicate sometimes, because that's the funnier part.
Yeah, usually we need a translator. Most likely in all the places we go, there's someone speaking either French or English, and we speak both. So it's, a pretty good start. But, sometimes, there was this one time in Morocco, in Ouarzazate.
Yeah.
With, what's the band?
Tarouantinity.
Tarouantinity. They all speak Arabic.
Yeah.
Arabic, yeah.
And there's this one guy that can really speak English really well. So he's always translating for everyone. And, I always feel that, when they're talking to each other, they're very aggressive, but that's just how they talk to each other.
Like Germans.
Yeah, it's
You know, you always
sort of a
feel
hard
like they're pissed off at something, but no, that's just how they talk.
that's just how they are. You know,
That's how the language is.
and you feel like there's something wrong happening in the session, and you're like, what's going on? And you're waiting for the translation, and he's like, oh, everything is fine. They like it. And you're like, oh, okay.
Okay, great.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What do people say about French?
Well, you know, it's always a little touchy subject because, well, both countries we've been in are ex-French colonies.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
usually the best way to befriend those people is to say we're Canadian.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, I just
yeah.
meant the language particularly, but
Yes, but yeah. But then they understand why we speak French because we come from the French part of Canada and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
But
and they
but
make
they-
fun of
yeah.
our accents, so it's funny.
Yeah. And
right.
yeah, no, usually they speak French or English. In Morocco it was both, depending on who we were speaking with. In
Yeah.
Senegal, mainly French. Not a lot of people spoke English.
Yeah.
But in French, we had pretty much no problem speaking with anyone except for maybe elderly. Like really old people, like 70 plus years old, mama living next door, obviously would come to me and speak in the local language.
Yeah, and she's trying to give you a lesson on how to speak
and
it.
she's really having a conversation with me like there's no tomorrow, and I'm just there nodding and saying, okay, cool, good day, great.
Yeah,
you
'cause
know,
you know,
doing
like the thing
thumbs up and, you know, trying to...
The thing in Senegal is most people speak 3 languages. So they're going to speak, well, especially in the region we were in, they speak Diola, which is the main language in the region. They're going to speak Wolof, which is the...
It's the main language.
in
from the
Senegal.
north.
Yeah. And then they also speak French because school is taught in French mostly.
okay, all right. Well, very cool.
Yeah, so they know like 3, and some of them know English because there's like English lessons or Spanish or Italian or
Greg, let me ask you about the filmmaking aspect of all this too, because you know, watching this on YouTube is just beautiful shots, beautiful film work.
Thank you.
It's like a very wonderful, entertaining, super extended vlog series, you know, in a way. What are some of the things? I know we're a recording focused show, but we also like video work and film and all these we like being creative, you know? So talk to us a little bit about what you needed to also think about. You know, here was bringing recording gear is enough work alone, but you had to bring a film studio too. So what did that mean? What did that look like for you?
Well, I wanted to be as light as possible, and I brought a pretty shitty camera. At that point, I had a C200 with like a Canon C200 with like a motorized servo zoom lens that was like a $20,000 kit. And obviously I didn't want to bring that. So I brought the only thing that I could bring, which is an XC10, which is a really cheap consumer-ish grade camera,
which you didn't bring in Morocco.
which I didn't bring in Morocco.
Yeah.
So, but at that point, that's all I had aside from the Super Pro rig. And so that's what I shot on, an XC10.
Now, you
And
also brought a
very-
drone, I think, right?
Yeah, I brought a drone.
That's the moneymaker.
And obviously, you know, well, today, you know, it's the standard. If you have a YouTube channel and you don't have a drone, you're like nobody.
Yeah.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
Although I did
Well,
get
that's
a
why you do
GoPro recently.
podcasts. You don't need drones to do podcasts.
Yeah. But you should tell the drone story for Morocco.
Yeah. Well, let me get to that.
Okay.
So basically, we only left with this very small camera, which is kind of shitty in the low lights, and so that was part of the struggle of doing this thing in Senegal, where there's not a lot of light. I mean, even like once the sun sets, there's usually like one main light in the house, and that's it. And it's always those like fluorescent,
Super white.
compact daylight crap that really is harsh. And so dealing with that was kind of a problem, and dealing with the low light in general. Thankfully, I had a nice plug-in in Final Cut, denoise, all that. But then again, you know, you don't want to do too much. And so, yeah. So, I mean, what did I bring? This camera, a tripod. That tripod was so small. It was one of those like I think it's made by Polaroid, and it weighs like a pound.
Oh, you mean like
And
a
it's-
very small one?
Yeah, it's made like those old school car antennas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like one little segment into the other. And so it's not very sturdy. And mind you, if I want to be in the shot, then I have to put it on a tripod. So
Yeah,
yeah,
'cause
that's
if
kind
not,
of
it's
part of the
just me.
challenge. Otherwise, it's just him.
Yeah,
And
it's
Simon
just-
records the world and Greg behind the camera.
And you're also not near enough to the tripod to catch it if it's falling over, right?
Yes,
Exactly.
that's it. But then again, it's a cheap camera, so it's not so
Yeah.
bad.
And the other thing you had like was the small tripod that we used as a mic stand.
Yeah, that's it. That's the
Oh,
one
that's
I'm
the
talking
one.
about. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay. I
the
thought
one.
we
We
were
didn't
talking
have
the-
we
the-
didn't have a full size tripod in Senegal. We only had the crappy one.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm not in charge
so-
of videos.
So yeah, I mean, the whole video rig was probably weighing about like I don't know, 6 pounds. It was pretty
Wow.
small and very, very compact.
Yeah.
It's really just about making sure you have all the shots you need to edit a full episode. And another aspect of it that you have to keep in mind when you do these kind of things is that we record a band that we've most likely never heard the songs they're doing beforehand. So we don't know which one of those songs is going to be the good song for the
Yeah.
video. Because
Yeah.
obviously I don't want to put the crappy one in the video. So you have to sort of shoot everything and everything in total. And maybe they're going to do just one take. So you have to make sure that in that one take, you have all the general shots, all the close-up shots that you have to sort of trick into making your viewer thinking that it happened live, but it actually happened after. And, you know, so it's kind of a mind game, it's kind of a puzzle to assemble. But once you have it, you have like a minute and a half of something that, while you saw, makes sense.
Yeah.
But most of those are live takes in like one take.
Yeah, because the
then you
thing is
also-
like when... Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say,
It's,
you also do all these cool tricks when you make videos, like you'll have like a fast motion, stop motion thing
Yeah.
to like condense a scene and
Right.
you have these flyover drone shots, or you're riding on a bus and you're holding the camera in front of yourself doing a selfie
Yeah.
shot so you can kind of tell the story of what's going on.
Exactly.
And the other part was also that, you know, when we're recording a band, we don't know what songs we're going to take. So sometimes we're going to tell them, okay, so play me 4, 5, 6 songs, and then we'll see which one we're going to take in them.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
we're going to take a song and then tell them, okay, we're going to take this one and then play that one again. And just to make sure we got 2 really good takes and something to work on.
'Cause in Senegal, the level of musicianship was good. So we had to really sort of sift through the good songs and make sure that we would only concentrate and focus and use our very limited time to do those songs.
Yeah,
In
mainly because
Morocco-
we didn't
yeah.
do any research
No,
or
that's
like
it.
a lot of research before
And
going.
they can't always just send us demos because that's not possible. That's not a thing.
Yeah,
I can't
because
even,
when
they may not even have a phone to record a demo.
No,
on.
there we go.
no, exactly. Because when Greg left to go back to Montreal, I stayed in Senegal for another month and a half, I think. So I was gone for like 2 months and a half on that trip.
And that's because
And-
you had not yet cried on that trip, so you needed to stay long enough until you could just break down.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's actually like I wanted to stay a little bit longer, and my girlfriend wanted to meet me in Senegal because she had time off on that period.
Cool.
And the fact that I didn't cry yet. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so when I was in when Greg left, I had more time to do some research, and then I found some amazing musicians like you can't even imagine. I did a whole album with this kora player that we did in, I would say 12 hours. That's including the 10 songs, everything live, and then all the overdubs with a calabash, a bass player, all the backing vocals, and some percussions, because the guys were so freaking tight. I mean, it's like, yeah, there's no second take.
Is that the same player that we see in the video?
No,
No.
that's another one. There's no video of him.
No, because it happened after I was gone
Yeah.
with the video gear.
All right, so let's talk for just a moment about the difference between recording audio and video and the amount of hard drive space you need for those two things. How did you guys make sure that you had enough room to record the things you needed on this trip? I mean, what did you do if you're going to, I mean, here we are, we've got studios and all we have to do is drive to Walmart, and yet still our drives are full and we don't have enough room and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, for audio,
Well,
it's pretty
it's
easy.
not so bad. I mean,
Yeah, audio, like in
yeah.
Morocco, for 3 weeks, I recorded for 80 gigs. Like the whole thing was 80 gigs. Your videos was...
Okay, I shot in Morocco. I shot about twice as much as in Senegal, but then again at half the bit rate. So I ended up with, in both times, I have about 1.5 terabyte of footage.
That's it. Wow, that seems like not
it's
that
not
much.
so bad. It's not so bad. It's not so bad, and it all fits on those. I use those little SanDisk solid state drives, which are very, very small, which are shockproof, waterproof, and I back up everything on two of them. One which is always on my person, the other one in my luggage, and I also keep the SD cards that I shoot with. And when I shoot, like when we were in Senegal, that was not a possibility. But in Morocco, I left with an A7 III, which is a great camera, and that has two SD slots, which also makes it possible to shoot on both cards at the same time.
And do backups.
Which means that if one fails, I still have the other one, because the whole footage is on two cards. Then once I fill a card, I transfer it to the hard drives. So I got two hard drives. I keep one of them and then wipe the other one, putting another one in it. So I always have at least at 3 places the footage. Like I would be very unlucky to lose all 3 of those.
But the SD cards are the little guys that go in the camera when you're shooting. And those are things that ultimately get wiped and reused over and over again, or are you actually keeping like a whole stack of them somewhere?
I have, like I left with...
Well, you had enough to keep them all,
8,
right?
Yeah, I left with 8 256 gigabyte one. So, of course, yes, it's a lot of space, but the way that I use them, every time I have a full one, I keep one of those in my backpack. And I also transfer it to those 2 SanDisk drives. So, there's always a triple redundancy anyhow.
Now, I know we're geeking out hard, but I've been doing, I just went to Winter NAMM and I shot stuff with a GoPro, and then I recorded on a little Tascam MX10 or something like that. It's a little clip-on recorder that goes on the mic.
Okay.
And I guess both of those are formatted SD cards with something called FAT32 formatting. And I was surprised to discover afterwards that when I record for 20 minutes or something like that, it breaks it up into all these little files, and you have to stitch it all back together.
There's a 4 gigabyte limit on FAT32. This is why they don't use FAT32 anymore in high-end gear.
I see. So if you have a good camera, it lets you record
the newer
like we're used to for audio.
At least. Like the A7 III, I think it's in XFAT, which is a lot more practical because of that thing. So you don't have like breaked up little pieces of footage that you have to put back together.
Well, suffice it to say, I was quite unpleasantly surprised, and I was concerned that I had, it had stopped recording in the middle of this thing we had done, and finally figured out that that's what it was doing. So Rockstars, just heads up that kind of stuff can happen if you're going to record on these unusual devices.
Yeah. We also left with a new device that we didn't have before. So basically, we had the drone. You saw the beautiful shots from Senegal. In Morocco, something happened though. I usually am very keen on checking on all the laws and the legislation on stuff like drone footage and things. And obviously, I've never ran into any problems in any of the countries I've been in with my drone. So Murphy's Law says that this one time that I didn't check, Morocco, There's actually, since 2014, a global ban on all of Morocco to use drones.
Wow.
So I arrived at the airport and the custom agent says, do you have a drone? And at that point, well, you don't really have a choice. You don't say no and try to hide it. You have to say yes, because that's the catch. You know, if you say no, then they just seize it and you're, you know.
It's kind of small, though. It fits in your pants, you know?
Yeah, it's a very small drone. But,
They must have terrible film production in Morocco. Terrible YouTube channels.
That's it. So basically, yeah, they took my drone, so I couldn't shoot any drone footage in Morocco. I guess that's going to be a gag.
Loss too of gear, isn't it?
No, what they do is that they
Or they give you like
they give you
like
a
this
receipt,
paper.
and then when you come back to the airport, well, they have it ready for you to pick it up and bring it back. Yeah, well, they're not stupid. They know that a lot of tourists
have to pay for it after, though.
Yeah, you have to pay for like the storage fees.
Right, totally. So what were some clever ways that you got interesting footage without having a drone?
The plane.
The
plane from Zagora to Casablanca.
Yeah, we crossed the Atlas Mountains, and I was just at the right angle at the right time of the day with the sun on the other side, and I got beautiful shots out of this. So that's great. And I bought this one new piece of equipment, which is called it's made by DJI also. It's called an Osmo Pocket, which is basically a very, very small gimbal with a drone-sized camera.
I've seen those. I've seen the pictures of them.
It is crazy. And it's also very inconspicuous, which means that I can take it out in a market, film with it, and nobody knows that I'm filming. Because today, even with a phone, people know that you're filming, like holding a phone vertically like that, horizontally, I'm sorry, like that, well, people know that you're filming them. And they don't necessarily like to be filmed or, but if they don't know, it's different. It's different. They don't have the same reaction and everything. And usually I come back and I say, do you mind if I filmed you and everything? And most of those say it's okay. So that's fine. But at least you have the correct reaction from the people. They don't try to act, and because it really doesn't look like a camera.
No, you can literally hide it in your hand, and then there's just this little
so small
camera.
Yeah.
And
since it's a gimbal, well, you walk around with it, and it does this really smooth motion.
Yeah, and it's tracking.
Also,
thing,
so it's great. It's great. So that's one of the tools that we didn't have in Senegal that we have now, aside from a much better camera. So yeah, season 2 is going to be even better in terms of image
and bands and music and
music also. That's what we wanted to say before, is that the musicianship level in Senegal was good. So we had to choose which song to focus on. But in Morocco, it's very different.
Yeah,
we sit down and
choose the bands we wanted to work with.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And tell them just play through your album, and most of the time it was one takes. And
that's it.
How many times as a producer did you hear 2 takes of a song, and that you look at the band and go like, well, you choose, because they're both good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not often you have this luxury. That's because they're just good musicians.
And the other thing is,
they
like,
knew their songs.
Everything was made without headphones, without click tracks. Just live off the floor.
There's no punch-ins.
Yeah,
there's
nothing.
No punch-ins.
Well, except like overdubs that we did after.
There are overdubs, but there's no punch-ins. There's no like, oh, we're gonna punch in the drum at that point. No, it doesn't. They just know their stuff so well that the end product is definitely up to par.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's how we did an EP with a band in a whole day. We did the whole setup in the morning, and then did all the live takes in the middle afternoon, and took the evening to do all the overdubs. And everything was done within 12 hours ish.
Yeah.
And 6 songs. Everything is great. And we did 2 takes of each song, took the one we wanted to, and then that the band felt they were really cool with it.
Yeah.
And then did some overdubs on top of that, and that was it. We just had the emotion and the raw energy of the band going on.
That whole first week in Morocco was like a marathon.
Yeah. Pretty much.
We did in 1 week. We did 3 full.
Well, two EPs and one
full
CD.
album.
Yeah.
Wow.
I still say CD, but
Yeah.
Well, it's a reminder, that even when we're back at home in a studio, if you can encourage a band to take off their headphones and they can perform well and just really pour their hearts into a performance live in a room, you can do a record very quickly that way.
Mm-hmm. And also the other way around as a producer, to put your headphones and be with the band and not in a control room also changes the energy.
Yeah, totally. Because the thing is, in my studio in Montreal, I have a control room with a live room and other rooms to, put like an amp and stuff. So being without headphones is very complicated.
Right.
But unless you put everything in the same room and everyone is jamming together, which makes it really, really cool. Like there's this video on Pure Mix with Vince Powell. He's doing like a whole band in one room, and the two guitar amps are side by side
Next
with the
to the
drums,
drums.
and everyone is jamming in the same room together, having the whole energy. That's
sometimes leakage is a lesser pain than bad energy.
Yeah, and it's part of the sound. It's that's how the players feel very comfortable. They feel motivated and very creative.
Yeah.
The curse of not having a lot of booths in a control room becomes a blessing from the standpoint of having a better performance. And
well, that's cool. I agree. I've had great success recording with the band all in one room. I don't get to do it a lot because you have to, it's got the moment's got to be right. Obviously, when you guys are recording on these trips like this, it's like the moment is that this is the moment. We got to figure out how to make something right here. So
we
it's
don't
a good
really
fit.
have a choice.
Yeah, and also is we found the bands like a month or 2 months before leaving.
Yeah,
pretty much. And then when we told them that we're going to go to their city or village to record them, well, they've been rehearsing nonstop for a month or 2 months.
Great.
Yeah, they're ready. Straight. So, and so you get there, you put the mics, and these guys, they're freaking ready.
Yeah.
So you guys are at that point. You guys aren't like, I was thinking maybe could we try a bridge on this one?
No,
They're like, we're ready. No. We got the arrangement on this.
Yeah, exactly. And they're very used to their song structures.
Yeah,
like this band that does like desert blues. How it goes is you got an instrumental, verse, chorus, instrumental, verse, chorus, instrumental, and that goes on for like 4 or 5 minutes. Yeah, because that's how it goes.
Yeah, it's at that point we're not producers anymore. We're really just recordists. And
we make sure like the performances are really good.
We might say, okay, well, the drummer's not super energetic or something
or
like that.
Your guitar is out of tune.
Yeah, so that part of the producing kicks in, but the whole figuring out a song structure and adding some parts, it's not songwriting anymore because one, we don't have the time, and two, we don't know this particular style of music, and who are we to go there and say, well, you should have a bridge there? No, it's their thing, and you sort of have to take your own space in there and say,
I mean, I never play with structures with bands when we do stuff like that. The thing I would do is more ideas about overdubs or like arrangements, and how I would do it's more like you give the idea and they have to agree, because they got their own thing of doing things. They got their own style. Like this band in What Is That? Like I wanted to give like some big back vocals or like something in instrumental, and they're like, yeah, let's not do that because that's not desert blues. I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough. That's okay.
Yeah. How often in your life do you get somebody to say that's not desert blues?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, that's okay. I'll use that in Montreal.
Yeah, there we go.
Sorry, Greg, you're about to say something.
No. That's it. That's pretty much. It's the whole realization that you're there and you don't know the culture and you have to sort of fit in there. Mm-hmm. And
So what is desert blues?
Oh, well,
it's a lot of guitar twirls.
Yeah, lots of reverb and delays, and this. It's usually played in D minor.
They have their own thing going on, and it's all part of this blues that got to their ear at some point in the 70s, and that just became this sort of very typical style with the weird keys also.
Mm-hmm.
They use a lot of accidentals that we're not used to in the Western world, I should say.
Yeah, and then there's this, like, usually it's there's a whole jam going on, because when you tell them to do 2 takes, both of them, the guitar licks, they're going to be different. I mean, like, the main riff's going to be the same, but he's going to jam around it. So usually it's not always the exact same thing. So there's a lot of jamming around it.
The 6/8, the 2 against 3 rhythmics. There's always something, going on three beats, and then another thing going half beat on 4/4, and they always meet. And that's very, very typical of that style. And what we both really realized once we were there is how present this rhythmic pattern is in every style of music in Morocco. This 2 against 3 thing in 6/8. It's everywhere, and it's a big part of the desert blues sound also.
Yeah. The rhythm and the electric guitar is the main thing. Like, usually they do a lot of, like, reverb and delay, very like like a Fender twin kind of sound.
And played with a pick, or played with fingers usually?
Fingers.
A lot of the time.
But it's not finger picking. It's just finger action.
Yeah.
From what we've seen, I mean, I guess there's many people doing different things, because, like, desert blues is like, it goes from Algeria to Mali, and it goes to Niger
and Western Sahara.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty big. There's a big region, and they all got their own little things. Like, they're the bands that they're very influenced by is Sinariwen, it's called.
Yeah.
Sinariwen. You should check that out.
All right, definitely.
Cool.
I'm excited to hear all this
Super
music.
cool.
That you guys are recording,
cool.
and the stuff you're going to be recording in the future. Where do you want to go next? What's on your radar for places in the world you'd like to record?
I'll let you go with that.
In Canada, I produce music for a lot of indigenous artists in Quebec, and, well, not all the way west to Canada, mainly east in Quebec and Ontario side. So what I wanted to do, and I told Greg, and Greg is all for it, we want to go up north. North of Quebec is there's like this city called Kuujjuaq, and there's a lot of the culture there is it's Inuit. So the women there, what they're going to do is a throat singing. So you should check that out on YouTube. So what they do is, like, they're one in front of one another, and then it's kind of like a game. So they're going to do this throat singing in front, and then the goal is to make the other one laugh. So that's how it started.
Nice. I'll see if I can make you guys laugh.
Yeah, there we go.
Close?
Yeah, kind of. But it's like if you and me were playing that beer game, like the first one that laughs. You got that game?
What is it?
No?
Was some game with my beard? I have a niece who jumps up and yanks on it, and it hurts a lot. Is that the game?
No, we call it Je te tiens par la barbichette. I'm not sure what's the translation of that.
I don't think it exists in English.
No? It's like you hold the other one's beard, and then it's the first one who laughs. I don't know.
Oh, good. Nice. All right, we'll try that one.
I don't know.
You got to be serious.
Not very musical for that one, but,
Yeah.
No, but
So-
quite honestly, when you bring up throat singing, that's pretty close to my heart, because I've long been a big fan of Hun Hertu from Tuva and countries like that, and the Plains countries. So I don't know. I'm assuming it's sort of similar stuff or similar style.
Well, it's similar. It's definitely similar because it's the same culture somehow. All the Mongolians, they're actually all the Native Americans from America. They all come from somehow the Mongolians.
Yeah.
That crossed the Bering Strait.
Yeah, Bering Strait. Yeah.
Yeah, when it was frozen. And while the Inuits from up north Canada, they sort of kept that culture intact because they were so reclused and they were so isolated that they kept all those like very rooty or the root of the culture, and the throat singing is part of that.
Yeah, I mean, they made this documentary where they sent a couple Inuits to Mongolia, and then they make them jam with musicians there, and they notice that it's almost the same culture, or they got like the same background, like after like years and years ago.
Oh, the connection is uncanny.
It's crazy.
It's obvious. And it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating. And that's part of why we wanted to go up there. The other reason is to show that, we're not just those two white guys going to Africa to record poor little Africans, which is cliche, definitely not the case. But we more importantly don't want to look like that. And we thought, well, why not go in our own backyards and trade the desert of sand for a desert of snow? Because in the end, it's all about recording artists that don't have the chance to have a professional recording because they don't necessarily have the mean, or they're too isolated, and B, the challenge of doing so in extreme conditions, which also applies to northern Canada in the middle of the winter.
Sure, yeah, because we still want to do it in January.
There we go.
That's the goal, because it's going to be minus 45.
The idea is to go all the way in the extreme.
Let's test those microphones and preamps.
Test those camera lenses.
Also, hey, thank God we're tapeless now, because I remember back in the days with those the little cassettes, they would stick to the playheads, and the condensation would make them have drop frames and crap, and it was a nightmare.
You're reminding me of my ADAT days here in the studio.
Exactly, exactly the same principle.
Jeez.
Yeah, so we're lucky actually that we can do that today with a couple of $1,000s of gear and just a lot of motivation.
Yeah.
Now, my only concern for you as a filmmaker, of course, is if you're going to go in January, that's the time when the sun never rises, right? If you go far up north.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you could get like daylight for 24 hours if you go at the right time of year. You guys need to go make a film in Sweden. Sweden in the midsummer.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Oslo in the summertime. The sun almost never sets.
What are some other exotic places that I'm just going to keep pushing you. Think forward. What are some places in the world where you're like, boy, it'd be wild to go try something, find out what's there?
Obviously
we thought about India.
Yeah, because of the parallel also with the throat singing, we thought, well, Mongolia would be fun.
Yeah.
And one of the places I've always wanted to see was Nepal. And we've had some people reach out to us from the far east of India also. And there's also Bhutan, which is a beautiful country with like very authentic music that has very rarely been recorded. And so all of this part of the East Indies could be really fun.
Yeah, there's a guy from South America
also
that contacted us. And from now on, it's just, it's more the places where we're going to get enough contacts with bands and with a big enough challenge also to do it. So, I don't know yet.
If it's too urban already, then maybe it's not as enticing if you're like, well, they've already got studios there or something.
Well, that's one thing. And the other thing is we don't want to go in a city in I don't know what country and then record just, like rappers that sing in English the whole time. It's, I don't think that'd be the goal.
Part of our I guess, the cheminement, how do you say? Part of the way we thought of this project, there's also a whole archival aspect to it, which is to record stuff that might actually not be recordable anymore because the knowledge of it is slowly dying because the with internet and with the globalization, youngsters, they are less and less enticed to keep living
like the tradition.
keep those traditions alive. And some of the chants that Simon recorded after I was gone in Senegal, I'll let you go on.
Like when I was in Senegal, there was this woman that was about, I don't know, she must have been like 70, 75 or something. So she does this very traditional singing, and all the younger people, they don't really do that kind of chants anymore, just because, they're more into, pop and hip hop and stuff that really connects with them. So there's no more of that kind of music going on. So the women that I recorded, she had her own band, which is pretty much 3 women all singing together. And then what I noticed is there's nothing of that genre that has been ever recorded in a very good quality way. There's a bunch of like cell phone recordings and ceremonies and stuff, but nothing with that you can actually listen to and you're like, geez, man, that sounds freaking awesome. So it's, from what we've got, I think it's the only recording
the only that professionally done,
exactly,
recorded material that has ever existed. So it's important to have this.
Yeah. So I stayed in the studio with her for 2 days with her and her bands just to record. I think we got eight or 9 songs together because she wanted to make an album. So we've got a whole album of that genre, very specific genre, all recorded. That sounds very, very cool. I think it's in the playlist that I've sent you. It's called the Domu. What's her? Domu Diambur. Domu Diambur.
Okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Well, so question for you. What advice do you have for the rock stars who maybe, if anybody's out there doing anything somewhat similar to you, or they're trying to record with somebody that they just met, what would they need to know, or what do we need to know about what sort of agreement you have with somebody where, some people might go, oh, you're taking somebody's music and what are you doing with it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, very good question. The agreement we've got with bands is we don't sign any contracts or anything. What we do is we do it for fun, mainly.
Yeah, so we don't own the material.
We don't own anything.
Just as if they were paying us to do that. So they are the sole owner of the end result.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is, when I get back to Montreal, I'm going to mix it, and then I'm just going to send it to them. And it's their property. We do it for fun, and that is it. What we do that we're going to start to do with a couple artists, we also propose them to put them on Spotify and Apple Music and just have this digital distribution, because it costs money to do it, and they don't have it. So the agreement we have with them is we're going to distribute it with a label we started, and then we take a 10% to cover the cost that it's going to cost me, and then everything else is sent to the artist. That's and that great. Is it. That's great. Honestly, we don't want to make it complicated. We don't own anything, and we're not songwriters.
We want to help those people, and obviously we wouldn't be of any help if we would just keep those things.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I guess the gist of the deal is, we have the right to use them in our videos because, that's how we have fun with it, and the rest is up to you. If they want to print CDs, it's theirs. We're not going to sell those CDs anyways.
Yeah, like one of the songs that we produced with a hip hop artist. What's his name? Fams. We did the whole recording with him with a beat maker in Ziguinchor. I mixed it at home, and then did a mastering, sent it back, and then they just distribute it on YouTube by themselves, and that's it.
That's great.
They just say thanks, Simon and Greg, and
that's it. It's just like if they had hired us, but we did it for free.
Well, the fun thing about having that approach to is that it just makes it so much easier as a field recorder to just simply go out there, meet people, start relationships, just record them and give, and not have to worry about any of the concerns around it.
No one except for one time in Morocco, no one ever looked at us like we were going to screw them over or something. Because
we always say that.
They know that
one time in Morocco.
Yeah, that one time in Morocco. But really, I mean, the bands, first of all, they understand that we're here to help them, that they wouldn't have this opportunity otherwise. And that, well, I mean, what are we going to screw them over with? I mean, they are also, they know that they're not superstars and that it's not going to sell thousands and thousands and thousands of copies.
Yeah.
Well, even especially in this day and age.
It's not a lot of money. I mean,
but yeah, I mean, so nobody ever sort of looked at us with the dirty eye going like, hey, so what's the deal here? What's the catch? No, they know that we're just here to help them and have a good time, and that's it.
Well, that's how it should be in a studio.
Yeah, and then they're
we're
super
just having
happy
a good
to
time.
receive. Yeah, and they're super happy to receive the masters. They're super happy to see themselves on the videos, and even the videos, we don't even monetize them.
Yeah.
So I mean, really, there's very little ways we could screw someone over.
Right.
Even with the artists, what we do is I give them like the full mixing experience. As I send them a mix. If they need corrections, well, I'm gonna do them, and until they're very happy with what they want to listen to. So
we want to see you guys do this over and over and over again for a long time. So hopefully along this way you guys figure out, the right model that allows you to just keep moving forward. And
exactly.
It's all very exciting. So this is going to be listened to by some of our listeners are listening to this right on YouTube. And of course, they have the opportunity to subscribe and hit the notification bell and like this video and all that, but also leave a comment below. So do you have any questions? I would say rock stars, drop a comment in below and tell these guys where they should go record next.
Yes, that's a really good one. If they got connections with the bands or anything they want to show us, or that's something that we should know or discover, like very specific genre of music. If there's a music revolution in the hip hop world in
Tanzania,
let's say, I don't know.
Really,
I don't know. Something we don't know about.
It can be anything.
We're
just interested in new stuff, in stuff that is unusual, anything that is traditional and that is dying, that is in any tradition that is in tatters because there's no one to take over these whatever chants, musical genres, musical
because there's a lot of knowledge behind all those chants. Usually they're going to sing about stories that happen in a village, like some very important moments that if it's not recorded or if it's not passed from mouth to mouth, it's
languages that are dying.
Yeah.
I mean, just in France, there are so many little dialects that ended up just dying because people wanted to speak the proper French.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, not so long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, the same is happening in Africa right now and in probably many other places.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if there's any way we can preserve that, that's awesome.
Yeah, well, I mean, the same thing is happening in Canada with indigenous,
yes.
where most people don't know how to speak the language. They're going to speak French or English, but it's the same thing that happened. So,
well, what's really encouraging as I hear you guys talk about this too is, no matter when we are, there's always going to be some aspect of an older culture that's just sort of at the risk of disappearing as the world evolves forward. And there's also going to be the question of somebody going, well, somebody must have recorded that already. But I think that you're always going to be at a new technology. Like you guys are at this sweet spot right now for the portable recording studio and YouTube and video creation. And so like you're perfectly positioned to capture the story that needs to be saved right now. And 20 years from now, when a rock star is listening to this podcast, there's going to be a new version of that. And so it's really encouraging to know that for all of us out there, there's always an opportunity to keep the story alive, whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Especially like the stories of the people we meet. That's the most important thing.
I mean, it's like at the end of the series, we wrote that we made it in the name of music and friendship, because it's both equally as important to us when we go to those places, is not only just a musical side of it, but also the human side of it, which is meeting amazing peoples and connecting with like friends. They all become our friends. I mean, my Facebook doubled.
Yeah, our Facebook is crazy now because we got so many friends,
and they're all interesting people with amazing stories, and they're all great musicians. And we only wish we could spend a month with each band, but that's not the reality of it, because obviously we have to come back and earn money.
Yeah.
To hopefully go back the year after.
Yeah. Because one of the important thing is, like especially in Morocco, well, even mostly in Senegal also, is when we tell a band that we're going to record them and produce their EP or album, we need a place to stay.
Yeah.
And usually like everything is super cool. We got a room with a bed, free of charge, and then they feed us, they give us food, buy us coffee. Like,
they make some pretty good food over there too, don't they?
It's crazy.
Oh man.
Oh, we ate well. Everywhere we went, we ate so well. Like better than at restaurants that we went after. And we were like, oh God, I wish I was still at that guy's place. Or
because usually it's their family cooking food. So, they know the recipe pretty well. So,
and they're very aware that, we're there to help them. So obviously they want us to be as comfortable as possible, and it's always well appreciated. And
it's crazy.
I'm always amazed at how conscious they are about this, and it's very heartwarming. Anytime we arrive at a place to see how welcomed we are, and it's also part of this whole human experience.
Do you have any encouragement for the rock stars about them maybe capturing the story that's around them?
Don't forget to take your vitamin C, kids. It's very important.
Do people, do the rock stars listening to this need to think, oh, you mean I have to travel across the world to go capture somebody in a faraway land? Or is there...
it can be your neighbor.
Oh, no.
Recording music, it's, that's how it is. It's people from your own... like your own town.
There's
everyone's
talent
got stories
everywhere. And I mean, if you were in Liverpool in 1962-3, well, maybe you crossed the Beatles and they weren't known.
Maybe there were 10 other bands that we haven't even heard about that should have been recorded.
Exactly. And that they weren't, because there was just no one to record there, and that recording a record at that point costed a bunch load of money. I mean, we're, like you said, at a day and age where it's a sweet spot for technologically have the best quality of recording at a very fair price. I mean, we only have 2 ears. Sure, there's Dolby Atmos and there's Ambio sound and everything, but in the end, if you're putting a headphone set on your ears, you still have 2 channels and only 2 channels. And I mean, that's really all you need is a good stereo mix. And we have all the gear that we need for, less than, I mean, you can literally go buy an M Audio sound card for $100.
You can get a setup to record for under $1,000.
Yeah, and do amazing records.
if you're creative and do some amazing work, I mean, seriously.
Okay, 2 more questions for you about, remote recording. One is, what do we need to know about power? You guys did some pretty remarkable things to power up the studio in Senegal, but here you are traveling with laptops, 500 series, chassis, and stuff like that.
Ridiculous. Well, the power was a big, one of the big challenge in Senegal because most of the houses, they don't have a ground, like nothing is grounded. So everything, when you touch your laptop, or especially the 500 series, you would take.
If there's a power leak, you'll take a shock.
Jeez.
You get shocked, yeah.
Man.
Yeah. And since it goes through the ground, well, then it's in the chassis. So you touch the chassis of the 500 series rack, and you're the ground now.
Right. Especially me with
so
bare
it goes
feet.
through you. Exactly. Sometimes we'd actually go put our shoes on, even though it was really hot, because at least it was kind of isolating us.
I mean,
in a physical way.
I had flip flops, and it was not enough. So
that's awesome.
That's a big problem, and obviously the power is not exactly regulated.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
So you'll get kind of, if in Africa, you'll get 220-ish. So sometimes it's 210, sometimes
and that's a lot of voltage
less.
too. That's not voltage you want to be touching.
Yeah.
And I would suggest it's a little too heavy to travel with the Variac on these trips.
Oh
man,
not exactly a possibility. Not exactly a possibility.
Yeah, because the other thing is that's why we put the ground in the recording studio, the one we built.
Yeah, that's a funny story because we actually had a talk with the electrician before he went and did his magic and wired the whole place up. And we were like, we need a ground. And also part of the losing the translation part was like he was saying something in Jiola in the local language, and then someone was translating us, and he was like, yeah, but it's very expensive. And we're like, yeah, what's very expensive? And he was like, and he was giving us the number in franc CFA, in the local currency. And we're sort of trying to figure out how much is it that in dollars. And it was like $40. And we were like,
yeah, do it now. Do it now.
No,
That's
please
okay.
do it. It's important. And he was like, no, it's not important. It's like, no, it's important to us. I know you don't need it to have your fridge working or something, but we need it as a studio. And he was like, well, if you can pay for it, sure, why not?
Yeah, because the other thing is because of the ground, like the audio that we recorded on some songs, there's this very slight distortion happening when I compare it to what we did in Morocco, which is day and night.
There's actually a form of voltage regulation in the power brick of the Apollo, of any sound card, but then not in the 500 series rack.
No.
So basically what happened is that since the preamps in the 500 series racks were underpowered, well, then they didn't have all this headroom.
Yeah.
And the 500 series standard is 16 volts, which is already not a lot. So if you underpowered them just a tiny bit, well, they're going to get to distortion pretty fast.
Yeah.
So having the Apollo was a really great thing for us because it was really solving all of that problem of, even though we would have some variation in voltage, at least it wouldn't hinder the dynamic range or the headroom.
Yeah, because I had a hard time to mix it after. I mean, it's you got like this very not fun distortion happening, and you try to get rid of it or trying to hide it. So it's it's not super pleasant. But.
Well, one day we're all just going to be looking back on this, and people are going to be talking about wanting to get back to that vintage Simon and Greg Senegalese sound, and you're going to have to develop a plugin to just get that right amount of distortion, right?
Make that not enough power plugin.
Yeah. Okay, and then last question about the remote recording. What are the dumb little things that will ruin a session that rock stars need to think about before they ever go do a field recording like that?
A chicken.
Oh, a chicken will ruin a lot of recordings. A chicken, a donkey.
It's honestly like the only thing that that would ruin a recording session that we had was what was happening around the recording studio.
Yeah, people
or
not
to
aware that we're
the recording
recording.
area.
Yeah, people. Okay, that actually happened in Morocco. We finished like this band, which actually never were recorded ever.
Which one?
The type of music, c'est Shialal.
Oh yeah, the older guys.
And there was this traditional chants band that they recorded, and like Simon said before, it's one of those genre or typical traditional songs that only exist in cell phone recordings on YouTube, like at a wedding or something like that.
Yeah, they sing. It's Rasma music.
It's so there's basically no known professional recordings of them. And at the end of the recording, at the end of the song, obviously there's one guy who literally just starts clapping.
But he was so happy.
Because he was so happy about the performance. And we're like, no. So I guess that's part of the problem, is that people forget that we're recording because we're not in a recording studio.
Yeah.
And and obviously they want to be part of the recording. They want to be part of the experience. And we can't really say no. Sometimes we say like, okay, no, there's a kid. Obviously the kid is going to be a problem. A 4-year-old is
screaming.
That's not going to be possible. Yeah. But obviously if there's, friends of friends, they come and then they move, and you're trying to explain them in your best, most diplomatic way possible, that the microphones are very sensitive and that they're going to pick up all the sounds, and even if you move just a tiny bit, it's going to be part of the recording. But they always, they don't realize how sensitive these microphones are and how little it takes to get into the microphones and into the recording and to basically screw up a whole lot of effort. So yeah, that's part of the challenge.
Well, one of the other challenges to record people that are not used to record in front of a mic, or just to be in front of a mic. They get very nervous. So when they're very nervous, you get this very shitty performance. So
and add to that I'm there with the camera.
Yes, also, and you got them filming, and then there's this big microphone in front of them, and they get very nervous. So they don't have like this very natural performance happening. So it's one of the big challenge that we have.
How do you help them get relaxed?
Man, give them a beer.
No, I'm
joking. I'm joking.
But jokes, making...
Yeah, we laugh a lot.
Yes. Making them feel easy on a human level, being comfortable with us, then they kind of forget about the gear.
Just think, if I was there with you guys, we could have done the beard pulling thing over and over again.
There we go. And then we would laugh nonstop. Yeah. But the thing with that game is, the one laughing, you get slapped in the face.
Uh-oh.
That's the game.
That's the one who loses.
Yeah, that's the game.
The one who loses.
But
that'd be me.
Yeah, but usually it's like we try to speak a little bit of their, like their language. They feel, they're, they feel a little bit better. They don't feel...
Yeah, making silly faces, making silly jokes. It's all about making them feel comfortable and get the best out of the performance.
Yeah, I mean, I do the same thing in my studio when I produce a band. It's it's all about the vibe, making feel them like very comfortable. Same thing with a singer. There's many ways to do it, but it depends.
Everybody's
depends on the people.
Different, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and especially when language is a barrier.
Yeah.
Those Rasma guy, first of all, they're all pretty old. So there's the generational boundary. And then none of them spoke English or French.
No.
They were all Arabic. So that's how do you make them laugh and make them feel comfortable? Well, it's just being silly and making faces and being a clown. Make tea.
That's a big one.
Right on.
Pretend to trip on something, and then everybody's suddenly all light and laughing.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, guys, I guess we've been going a good long while, so it's time for us to wrap up.
Yeah.
Before we go, I want to ask you this hypothetical question. We'll take the Wayback Studio machine, and you go find young Simon and Greg, or not that young. I guess it was only a couple of years ago, maybe, when you were at the beginning of this idea of going and recording the world. You've done it 2 times now. You've done 2 trips. If you could go back and give yourselves one bit of advice and say, here's the single most important thing you guys need to know to remember to be a rock star of the studio all around the world one day, what advice would you go back and give yourselves?
Oh man,
Don't overdo it.
Yeah, don't
Just go with the flow.
just chill, buddy.
Yeah.
Chill,
I
buddy.
mean, we're doing that for fun, you know. You got to remember that it's a selfless act in the sense that we are giving our time and we are giving the masters, and they have full ownership of these masters. But the real reason why we do it is because it's fun. So it's kind of selfish also. It's not completely a selfish act, a selfless act. It's also a little selfish because we're having fun doing that. We want to do it for us. We want to be part of their dinner, all eating around the same plate of food and laughing together and having that moment. And they're giving us that opportunity. So there really is a give situation here, and it's beneficial for both of our parties.
Yeah,
you know,
for like
us.
as in terms of advice, it's it's like look beyond. It's it doesn't have to be just in your own little bubble in your city or always with the same people. It's go beyond
And have no expectation. Just live the moment and have fun.
Oh yeah,
living
and be
the
ready
moment.
to fail.
Yeah,
and,
be ready to fail because I mean,
and get shocked.
get shocked by 500 series rack.
And go ride on the back of a motorcycle and get beer from the neighboring town for your session.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, that's what I would tell
yeah.
myself. Don't bring that 500 series rack.
Stay
Don't do
light.
it. Yeah.
Stay light because we're still learning from these trips.
Yeah, what to bring and not
what
to
to bring, what not to bring. This whole UA situation has upgraded our life quality quite a bit.
Well,
because yeah.
It's funny because on this podcast, I've asked for many episodes, I've asked people to talk about like if they were going to start over in some other town, what simple recording setup would they bring? And
we got it right there.
It got the one thing that got more mentions by more people than anything else was the UA Apollo. And here you guys are traveling the world with the UA Apollo
There you go.
and recording people all over and getting it to work. And now, of course, you've moved up to the UAD XAP, which I don't know if that existed 3 years ago or not, but
No, I think it's new from this year, eh?
Yeah, it's
like a year
I
and a
think it came
half.
out, about a year ago.
Yeah.
so
And
super cool.
it's important to mention also that Focal this year has given us the Clear Pros, which are basically sort of a spin-off of their audiophile headphones, open back audiophile headphones, but tuned very, very, very flat.
Yeah, you should show them. I mean,
And-
like the people on the podcast won't see
obviously they won't see it, but here's
So-
what it looks like.
and so that
it's
helps you really know what you're recording while you're out there.
Not only that, but it also helps you to have to be able to mix. It's basically like having a set of speakers on your ears.
Oh, that's
So
great.
it's an amazing,
Yeah,
amazing
they're
reference.
super cool. Super cool.
I might need to
like
take those
open-
down to Bonnaroo.
You should. Well, especially like in Bonnaroo, you got your own little control room.
Yeah, but I do all the mixing in headphones in real time while the band's playing.
Well,
you know what? Like that'd be perfect because they're still open back, so there's a lot of sound coming out of the headphones. So for tracking something very quiet, sometimes like with a click, that's not the best.
no.
But for mixing, man.
and for just listening to make sure that what you recorded is right, is correct.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And since they're open back, we actually at low volume could mix with both our headphones on and talk to each other.
Yeah.
And it was just like being in a control room, except There's no treating. There's no to do at the room. There's no speakers to bring with us. It's really the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Even in a crappy hotel room.
Super cool. And you could really kind of get a sense of the bass and the low end as well.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Especially the
totally.
low end.
It's very
is-
well balanced.
Oh, yeah.
They're amazing headphones. I've never
We were
listened
blown away.
to something like that.
Okay. And what are those
Crazy.
ones called again?
The Clear Pro?
Yeah, Focal Clear Pro. So
Yeah.
basically, between the Universal Audio Apollo, the Focal Clear Pros, and Loughton microphones, I mean, really, like right now we're speaking in the LS208, which are the brand new Loughton Audio microphones that we brought in Morocco with us that we found to be extremely useful.
Those are condensers or
kind of-
dynamics?
They're condensers, but they
They
kind of
reject a lot
they
of the
reject a
sound.
lot, and they can take a lot of SBL. Like,
Yeah.
you can put that on a snare drum, that no problem.
Nice. Very cool. Well, guys, thanks so
Yeah.
much for being on Recording Studio Rockstars with us. It's been a long
Thanks
episode.
for having
but
us.
Just so much fun. I mean, you guys are a blast, and it's cool having both of you on the podcast together. And then, of course, your story and your videos, Rockstars. Please remember to go check out these incredible documentaries on YouTube of their travels in Senegal. And I guess in a while, we'll have some videos up from Morocco. Maybe not by the time
Hopefully
this
in
episode's
the
out,
summer.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
I
summer.
hope, I wish they, because, you know, like I said during the break, it took a long time to get the deal with the distribution with Fab and Pure Mix. But once this machine started, they were extremely helpful and really helped us get out there and be seen and be heard.
Yeah,
That's
and then
great.
we're going to start releasing the music
Yeah.
that we've been producing
Exactly.
in springtime,
Yeah.
pretty much.
So
Super cool.
hopefully in the summer,
Yeah.
we're going to have season 2 ready. And hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, at that time of the year next year, we're going to be knee deep in snow.
Yeah.
And
Freezing.
and on Netflix.
And
Something like that.
I don't know yet. Hopefully.
Cool. Well, guys, where should the rock stars go to learn more about you guys, follow you? Are they going to be, where do they pick up on your Instagram live stream when you're touring the world and all the good stuff?
Well,
Pretty
they
simple.
can go check the website, simonandgreg.com.
SimonandGreg.com. And
The
then,
Instagram is
Facebook
Simon and Greg Record the World.
And Instagram, Simon and Greg Record the World. Exactly.
Yeah, that's the one. We got our own website. Mine is simonwalls.com. And yours is Greg Boney.
GregBoney.com. Like, we're keeping it simple.
Yeah.
Cool.
Or .coms now.
There you go.
Well, it's Simon and Greg Record the World is one of the greatest names I've heard. So that's great.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled to know you guys. And thanks so much for being on the podcast with us. I look forward to seeing season 2 and just hearing more of your music.
Thank
Excellent.
you so
Thanks
much
for having us. And it was great.
Yeah, and good job on your show, man. I'll listen to it all the time. Freaking awesome.
Oh, thanks very much,
I learned
man.
a lot of stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, and one last closing thought. Rockstars, remember to drop a comment into the YouTube video here below and give us a shout out. Let these guys know where in the world they should go next.
Oh,
And
yes.
actually, we are pretty keen on keeping up with those comments. I usually read them all, and Simon too.
Oh, yes.
So if
And we
anyone has
respond.
any type of question for on your channel, we will answer
for sure. Oh, yeah.
Groovy. And if you're listening on the podcast app, just click over to YouTube and look for Recording Studio Rockstars and you'll find it right there. Thanks, guys. I can't wait to meet you in person and see you around the studio.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. Also, remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with these weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free mixing course at mixmasterbundle.com. Look for the link in the show notes. And if you want more free content from Recording Studio Rockstars, all you have to do is go to rsrockstars.com/email. Again, that's rsrockstars.com/email to enter your name and email, and I'll keep you in the loop with articles, videos, podcast updates, and even free gear giveaways for your studio, all totally free. Thanks for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music.